Welcome to another edition of Foundation Focus. I'm Jim McKenzie, the Executive Director for the Education Foundation, and I have with me today three young ladies to talk a little bit about the early learning education process. Karen Crosby is fresh out of the classroom. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
Today, Karen. Cassie Dillon has been for a while with early learning, and then Mary Hofstetter, who is the actual chief in charge of making sure that the process of early education gets distributed amongst the new students and young folks within the St. Lucie County. Mary, maybe you could help me to understand, and our audience, what is early learning, what is VPK, what is the terms age 3 to grade 3, and now I'm hearing that it's something more than that, it's second grade. How do we get the kids started?
All right. Well, our particular program started with the 2011-2012 school year when Houghton Mifflin Harcourt formed the partnership with us and actually supported my position as well as some of their coaching positions. So we went from age 3 to grade 3 as the area that we were going to impact in St. Lucie County. We're at this point wanting to go even further down from birth to 3, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So our realm is actually from age 3 getting students to third grade. In third grade, we know that's when the high stakes testing starts and kids have to be ready. And we also know the importance of getting them ready. And you've seen a lot of the research. For every dollar we spend in early childhood, it prevents us from having to spend conservatively $7, $8 later on for remediation and things like that. So our partnership here, we collaborate with the Head Start centers, we collaborate with the Early Learning Coalition, and we work with VPK. You asked about VPK, that's voluntary pre-K. It's a source of funding. It's for kids who are 4 years old before September 1st. Every child in the state of Florida can have 3 hours of free preschool. And then in our schools, it's a full day program because we also get supplemented with Title I dollars. So the VPK is a source of funding for preschool. But there are so many different other sources of funding when you get into the Head Starts and the Early Learning Coalitions.
But the key is that we're trying to address literacy issues, understanding issues, speech issues, starting at age 3.
Age 3 right now. We want to go lower. That's so critical. When you know that 90% of our brains develop by the age of 5. So it's so critically important. Not just the literacy and the speech, the language development is critical, vocabulary is critical, but we also work with the social emotional, the daily living skills, the self-care skills, all those things. And sometimes people think that should stop in kindergarten and then we really focus on academics in kindergarten. But all the way through second grade and even beyond, kids need that social emotional piece and the support, and we really want to make sure that we're keeping childhood at least through second grade and even higher, because second graders, third graders, fourth graders, they're still kids and they all need that support. Sometimes I think we get so bogged down in the academics, and although that's really important, we do try to look at the whole child.
Good, thanks. Karen, you're fresh out of the classroom, so
exactly.
Your perspective on what the district has been doing and how it's supporting these students. The analogy that I've used here in the last couple of months, that it's like a football game. By the time a student reaches age 9, we're halfway through the game. So that first quarter, that age 3 to grade 3 is so important. How does that play out in your experiences from the classroom?
In my experience, it's the most fundamentally important thing that we can do for a child to get them off to the best start possible. Of course, we know their parents are their first teachers, and that's why it's so important to be in a partnership with them first and foremost. Then from there, when they come to the classroom, we help build the entire child. Like Mary was speaking about, we have all their parts of their development as a focus of our concern. And we look at that and we help them grow through everything that we do in the classroom. So all our instruction is purposely focused on their areas of need, but we do it through purposeful play so that they're learning and growing by having lots of fun while they're doing it, and helping the parents understand that play is a very important part of what they do, and that's how they grow and learn and build develop their language skills and their vocabulary and conflict resolution. So there's many, many, many things going on, and sometimes it might look like play, but it's really, really important learning. And that's where we start. We build that foundation, we give them those skills so that they'll be ready to move on to kindergarten and beyond.
That's great. And, you know, I like what you use. You didn't just say the word engage kids, which is the word that normally gets thrown out there. You know, yeah, they're playing, but they're learning. Yeah, they're interacting with other students, they're learning. That word engage sometimes...
Play is the work of children.
Yes, that's great. That's a great analogy. Cassie, you and I met a couple, 3 years ago. What's your role with the early learning, with the VPK and all of that, and how does that fit in with the rest of what Karen has said as far as bringing students along?
Well, my role is kind of the same as Karen. We work very closely together, only for a couple months now, but I'm really happy to have her to work with. And we're still teachers, and we're teachers doing a little different work. We're not in our own classroom every day, but our job is to ensure that the schools that have our pre-K programs and the teachers have the tools that they need and the knowledge they need to ensure that every child in pre-K is getting a high-quality experience. Because if every child gets a high-quality education in their early years, we're going to be setting them up for lifelong success socially, emotionally, and educationally.
And that's, I mean, I think that that's a very important part. No matter where you read an article about early learning, it does point to the fact that if you can engage a student, I use that word again, but have a student doing things that they can start to learn from, they're going to be much more successful in the long run. And you know, the end zone is graduation rates, and if we can get students there, that's the important piece. A student comes to a VPK, they play, they learn. Where do we take it from there? How do we involve the parents? How do we involve the community? How do we support that continued learning, particularly at that early age? I guess, Mary, you want to take that one?
Oh, absolutely. When we say that they come and play, they're actually in the 4-year-old classrooms, there's 102 standards, so they do have standards as well. When Karen was saying, if you walk into a classroom and there's oral language development going on and kids are engaging or talking or playing or problem solving and being creative, they're working on those standards. So the teachers are still held highly accountable for 102 different standards, which is quite a few when you're looking at these little 4-year-old kids. If parents are involved, as Karen has said, they're their first teachers, communication, that's critical. Find out what the kids are doing in the schools, and they can help support those at home. But also, if there's some things that are really going well at home, share those with teachers too, that we want to be able to incorporate the children's interest and things that they're doing at home in the schools. The better partnerships we have, the more we're going to be able to support every child. The community, there's all sorts of ways the community can get involved. We have a lot of family days and family activities. We have a conference coming up. I know we're going to talk about volunteer your time, your talents, your treasures. There's all sorts of ways that you can support early childhood.
So besides thinking normally that you would mentor at the high school, I mean, we can really engage our community and get our community involved in doing that at the middle school. Karen, you know, you're shaking your head there going, that's important, that's important. Tell me a little bit more, the importance of it.
The importance of the community and the families?
The community and making sure that we're supporting those students.
Well, I think the community, I would love for them to really understand what VPK is from my perspective. I think there's a lot of miscommunication between people as to what actually goes on at a VPK classroom. And as Mary was saying, it's standards-based instruction. So it may appear as play. And if somebody was not aware of what was going on in our classrooms, they may say, oh, they just play all day. But the reality of it is, it's a very serious undertaking getting these kids ready, because we're preparing them not only for kindergarten, but the rest of their life. And there's been many, many studies showing that children that are well prepared from a quality program do much better in school. They get higher paying wages when they do enter the workforce, and they also are less likely to commit a crime. So there are definitely correlations between quality at preschool education and their futures. So I really want to get that message out there to the community and help them support VPK, because it's really, really an important thing that children get that great start and help them towards a really successful future.
Well, how does, I mean, you walk right down the road, you see the daycare, or you see the church, or you see VPK classes. Is that all under the district undertaking, or are they reporting to the district? Because eventually those students are going to be ours. And how does that kind of work, Cassie?
Absolutely. Well, like Mary said before, there's many. VPK is a source of funding for a 3-hour free program for all 4-year-olds in Florida who are 4 by September 1st of the program year. So when you see the signs that say free VPK, that's what it's referring to, and they have them at the private providers, and then we also have it within the public school, and ours is combined with our Title I funding. When it comes to the private providers, we do have partners that we're partners with them, and we help them with professional development and tools that they need to succeed as well. So they don't directly, we're not in charge of them. However, we are partners with them. And
we're partners, and we're providing them resources as coaches to make sure that the students have the proper skills that are achieving the 104 points that you mentioned, or 140 points of kind of learning process. What does that mean to us? Mary, take a global picture, or a big 10,000-foot picture. What does that mean if we have a successful VPK? What does that mean for the school district, for that K through 3rd grade teacher?
Every year we have roughly 3,000 children coming into kindergarten, and as Cassie had mentioned, we have about 360 children in our school-based VPK classrooms, but we also have ESE class, or pre-K classrooms in our schools as well. But that's still only a small portion of the 3,000 children. So this partnership with Head Start, with Myrna Rodriguez, has been so welcoming and really been supportive of this whole project, as well as Cassie had mentioned, we have about 130 private providers in St. Lucie County. We partner with about 67 of them. So we also go in and provide some on-site coaching, and as Cassie mentioned, professional development at the school district for those folks, as well as classroom materials. The partnership with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt gave them about $3,000 initially of curriculum and materials, and then we're going to continue that. What that means for us is we've got some pretty good data already to show we are above the state average for kindergarten readiness rates coming in, which means that our children are coming in above state average as far as phonological awareness skills, letter identification, number identification, but it goes further than that. It looks at a lot of different skills. And the other thing that this partnership has done so far is a provider can be called a provider on probation, meaning their scores aren't very high, and if they don't continue to improve, they could be shut down or they could lose funding. When we started this partnership, we had 32 partners, and we had a couple classrooms in our school systems that were considered providers on probation. We've gone from 32 of those to last year 17, and our goal is eventually 0, but next year we're looking at trying to get into single digits. So that we're trying to even the playing field so that every child gets the support and the skills that they need to enter kindergarten. And what it means for the kindergarten teacher is when you're not just looking at letter identification, number identification, but the whole child's social, emotional, behavioral, you're going to get a child who comes ready to learn, eager to learn, and has the background knowledge to do that. And that's really, that's going to pay dividends as they get into middle school and high school as well. You mentioned the graduation rates, directly correlated to the graduation rates.
And I think that's one of the important things that, you know, if you look at how we judge ourselves, the final result is really the graduation rate. So when we can create these intervention programs, because I think this is part of an intervention program, it's intervening in a child's life, in a family's life early on to ensure that that student has all the opportunities afforded to them as they go through life. And that only can help our community. You know, you mentioned the jails and prisons and criminals, and that's an important part of being able to get a job. And if you have a job, you have a better chance of success. So I think that, you know, doing this age 3 to grade 3, I think is kind of a great little niche market to make sure that we're kind of making sure that students have all the skills that they need to have to be successful, and they learn them early. I mean, you mentioned that 90% of the brain is developed by age 5.
Yes, sir.
So we're right in that ballpark of really helping them to expand those skills. Karen, and I love going back to you because you're so fresh out of the classroom and how that means you came. You were at Lakewood,
Lawnwood Elementary,
and you taught over there.
I was there for 9 years.
9 years.
7 of which were VPK, and 2 I started there as a kindergarten teacher.
So you've really got the know-how, the experience, of knowing how important this program is.
I came from a program up north, and I've taught VPK type programs for 29 years. So I've been in early education for a long time.
So you really do understand.
I do.
The importance and how does that? How do your colleagues in the school? How do they look at the VP programs, and what's their take on these things?
It was a learning process for them. When we first started VPK 7 years ago, they viewed it, much as a lot of people in the community viewed it, as playtime. Oh, they're going to come in, they're going to have some fun. Oh, what a great job you have. You're going to get to play with the kids. They have nap time, you give them a little snack, they go home. As the years evolved, they became aware of what actually was occurring as they were getting my children from VPK into the kindergarten class. And they saw how they were prepared and ready to learn the minute they walked in the door. So it was a learning process for them as well, but ultimately they came to really appreciate what happens in a VPK classroom and how it prepares kids for kindergarten and beyond.
That's great. And I think that's important to see the perspective, up and down the chain of a student's progression. Mm-hmm. Cassie, you had mentioned that there's a lot of private providers. How do we engage them in making sure that, because they don't have to listen to our rules or the district's rules, how do we work at engaging them and making sure that they're on course in the same direction that we are?
Well, there are other rules that keep everybody kind of, Florida has rules that keep us on course and on the same page, but I think really the key is the ones that have chosen to be partners with us. We really, really work together, and we have common materials from our public schools and also in the private providers. And then when we invite them in, this year it's every other month for professional development, and it's optional to come, and we fill the room and we have a lot of fun together engaging in learning strategies and developmentally appropriate activities that they can bring back to their classrooms and do with their kids. And then now we have all of these classrooms, whether private or public, doing the same types of things to teach the standards to our kids that are preparing them.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming conference where I first met you, both of you ladies, 3 years ago. The foundation was fortunate enough to be able to help support that program along with your other partners and have continued to do that. Tell us about the conference. Tell us what the programs are in the conference, and then we'll talk about where we go from there.
Well,
Mary?
first of all, thank you so much for supporting and continue that. The conference is a lot of fun. Last year we had 180 pre-K teachers and paraprofessionals attend, and each year we change the theme a little bit, but it's always, as Karen was talking about earlier, standards-based. And so this year it's around the cognitive development, general knowledge standards, and we're doing it through the arts. So there's going to be a keynote speaker, Ron Mall from Lakeshore, who's phenomenal, and then we have 2 breakout sessions, and they're going to be around music, art, dance, visual arts, and the participants leave with materials that they can actually take the very next day. Well, next day would be Sunday, but Monday, and put into their classrooms and start using it. So it's wonderful camaraderie, it's wonderful sharing of ideas, and the cool thing about those sessions is because I've done a couple of the presentations, I throw out a couple ideas, but when you have a group of pre-K teachers in the room together, you hear then, the ideas just build upon each other. You hear like 10, 15 other great ideas that other people are doing that they don't often get the chance to share because quite often they're in their little site in their own room and don't have that opportunity for that partnership. And when you were asking Cassie about how do you get people excited about that, it's things like this. They want to share. Everybody that works with kids just has a love of learning and a love of making their classrooms better. And so this is a wonderful way that we feel like we're giving back to them, but we gain just as much from their participation as they do from ours.
When you mentioned, and I kind of want to talk about, at least the obstacles, and teachers and the paraprofessionals are able to talk about the obstacles. What are the obstacles?
Well, there's not a lot of money that go in our little private providers. Don't make the kind of money that we do in our. Not that any teacher feels that they're greatly overpaid, but the salaries are not great. So we have quite a bit of turnover in some of the little centers. But some of the centers have really solid financial standing, and they don't have a lot of turnover, but that's one of them. But communication as well. Sometimes you're an island of yourself. You're out there all by yourself, and you don't have the communication with other providers. And sometimes it's materials, and sometimes the smaller sites have to have 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds all in the same classroom. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that would be like, okay, let's group all our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders together, and now you teach them all the standards. So it makes it even more difficult for a teacher to do that. So those are some of the things that we try to support and provide strategies and suggestions on how to make that work.
Okay, so, but the early learning, the age 3 to grade 3 is what? Karen, you're saying that you've been doing it for 29 years, but for us, in St. Lucie County and in Florida, it's 3-5 years old?
VPK.
2005.
It was 6.
About 5-6 years old? Yeah. So it's still a growing process of learning how we're going to deal with the continued number of students to talk about.
Yes, and the funding, the access, Florida has a lot of access to VPK. I think we're second in the nation that we offer it, but the funding per pupil is not that great. So we're looking at we're about 35th out of the 50 states in the nation for actually funding VPK. So we could really use some help from the legislators too to allocate additional dollars towards early childhood.
So if we have a legislator or chamber members or folks like that, the additional funding of VPK would be an extremely important part of our legislative agenda to talk to legislators about as they're putting the budgets together for the coming years.
Absolutely.
And so that's something that as a community we can address. So you have your conference here in January. Everybody comes in for a Saturday. They have music and art, and they hear a great lecture, all of this camaraderie, and I go back to my classroom. How do you support them from there on? What's the follow-up? What additional support can be provided? Do we go another year before we get these, are there surveys? Are there, what do we do from there?
Kind of all of the above. These two go into our school-based sites, and then Angela Guerin is also the supporting person who goes into our ESE school-based sites. But through the partnership with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, we also have part-time coaches who are going into about 67 of our partner sites. And then Bridget Hyde is the instructional support person that's similar to what Cassie and Karen do for Head Start. So we don't wait a year. We go right out immediately and say, how are you going to implement this? Now, what you just learned, some of these ideas, and the teachers are really excited to show us too. So we get pictures back, we get emails and explanations of what they're doing, so that we can share those with other people too. We have a website that we put pictures on and try to make sure that other people can see all the great things that they're doing in their classrooms. Because like I said, I might give them, or a session might give them 3 or 4 ideas, and then we hear back all the other things that they've done with the materials that they were given.
And so this conversation creates new ideas for future years and for opportunities that teachers have to exchange their programs. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Houghton Mifflin Harcourt as one of your primary supporters. Who else helps you out with this project? I mean, there's a lot to put a conference together. There's a lot, especially do the follow-up. Who or what community organizations or civic groups or social groups help you through this process.
Oh boy, I'm going to leave somebody out, but it's
And-
it's incredible.
yeah.
Fort Pierce Central is fabulous. That's the site that we have. Their custodial staff is unbelievable. We give them their T-shirts and they put them on. And they become part of early childhood right away. Peggy Ash, Cobra Cafe, unbelievable. She does all the lunches. Terrence O'Leary and his IT department go make sure everything's working for us, and because we use the auditorium as well. Alpi Head Start, Early Learning Coalition, Lakeshore Learning Materials, Kaplan Materials, Office Discount Supply, Dragonfly Graphics makes all the T-shirts, the volunteer T-shirts for free. It really is I know there's more people.
Education Foundation.
We threw that out. Absolutely, Education Foundation. People in our district office, because we don't have funds for the presenters, so the people in our curriculum department, the people in our student support department, our ESC department, they come out and they lend their expertise by doing the sessions and supplying materials. And it does take, this is a cliche, but it does take a village to put this on.
And I think that that's important for our viewers to know that it's not one person putting these things on, that it is a collaboration of organizations, of groups, of individuals that really see the importance of the age 3 to the grade 3 and how a student can be successful as we go down the road. Because, again, I'll reiterate, if we get the student early, we get them moving in the right direction, we provide the support that's needed, we challenge them, we give them opportunities for success, we're not going to have them being supported by our community through our taxes while they're incarcerated or they're creating havoc within our community. And that's how we build a community. I think that's one of the most important things. And I certainly applaud you three ladies for really getting involved and making sure that there's programs, there's support, there's follow-up. Karen, 29 years of teaching little bitty kids. I don't know if I could do it for 5 minutes.
They keep you young.
And, that's just amazing.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we're very fortunate in St. Lucie County. Our school board is so supportive of early childhood. We just have a fabulous school board, as well as our superintendent and assistant superintendents. We get tremendous support from that group as well.
And that's great. Well, thank you for joining us for another edition of Foundation Focus. We're talking about early childhood learning, the age 3 to grade 3, one of the most important times in a young child's life in learning. And so if you have an opportunity to support their programs, please let us know. You can contact any of us through the foundation. Again, I'm Jim McKenzie, the Executive Director for the St. Lucie County Education Foundation. Thank you.